Hey FlossTube, it's Jean Workman of Monticello Stitches, and happy summer to you. It's July 31st. I'm in Georgia and it's so hot and humid, but I'm in the air conditioning, so I thought I'd take advantage of this time to just tell you what I've been up to. My son has spent the summer in Oxford, England with Clemson University. He's a professor over there, and they have a summer study abroad program. So my husband and I went over to Oxford for a week in Oxford and then about 8 days in Scotland. So we had a wonderful time. I'm going to share in some other videos some of the breathtaking scenery we had. Oxford was unusually hot. They're not used to hot, and they have no air conditioning. So that was sort of taking me back to my childhood in Georgia, when we had no air conditioning. It was pretty hot. But while we were in Oxford, my husband and I took a cab over to another village called Witney. We went to Witney Antiques, and we had an appointment with Becky Scott, the proprietor of Witney Antiques, and her shop is all about beautiful, historic cross-stitch or other needlework samplers, primarily from the 17th century. And she allowed me to videotape in there, and she allowed me to interview her a little bit. We had such a nice afternoon. She took up so much time with me, and I just wanted to share with you what Witney Antiques is all about. Becky has been collecting and selling these samplers for more than 30 years. Her parents had an antiques business with more furniture, but when they retired, she sort of focused more on beautiful cross-stitch and beautiful embroidery. And in my video, you won't really see too many, if any, close-ups of the actual needlework. When I first went in, she said, I asked if I could photograph, and she said, just please don't put it on social media. So I have sort of sweeping views of her things she has in her shop for sale, but I would encourage you to look on her website. Witney is not spelled with an H, Witney, antiques.com, and you can see her gorgeous things that are so beautifully presented and they're for sale. But what she has is magnificent. If you like historic cross-stitch, which I do, and as most people who do cross-stitch know, there's such a revival of interest in samplers that either mimic historic samplers or are pure reproductions of those. But we had a lovely time, and she was so kind. We had taken a cab there from Oxford, and we invited her to lunch, but she couldn't do that. But she said, what are you doing? Where are you going? So, long story short, she realized we needed to see more of the Cotswolds than we probably were going to see. So she graciously took us in her car out to a wonderful Cotswold village that I was totally unfamiliar with, called East Leach. And it's tiny, and it's very, what's the word? It's true to how it probably always has been. There's no development in there. It's gorgeous. And in another video, I'll show you some of that area. And then she came and picked us up and took us over to a bigger Cotswold village called Burford, where we could catch a cab back to Oxford. But it was a magical day, and I'm going to share with you the interview I did with her. And forgive my jumpiness. I'm holding this in my hand, and apparently I keep jiggling, but I don't mean to. But I will share this with you, and I will put the web address of Witney Antiques at the bottom. And I hope you enjoy. I sure did. I will tell you, her shop it's actually in Witney, in the town of Witney, but eventually she's going to move it to her farm. And appointments are preferred, but when she moves her shop to her farm, appointments will definitely be necessary. But I want to thank Barbara Hudson. We had a conversation in Nashville, and she knew we were coming over to England this summer. She said, you got to go to Witney. And I'm so glad she told me about that. If you are a fan of the Attic Needlework Shop in Mesa, Arizona, you may already know that Becky had given a talk at the Attic on historic needlework. She's so knowledgeable. She's written some books, but you'll find out more in the interview. I hope you like it because it was just really great. And I appreciate all the time she took with us. So, get a cup of coffee and get ready to have your socks sort of knocked off. You can't really see much, but if you will look on that website, you will see individual samplers and Bristol samplers. Gorgeous things, gorgeous. So, hope you enjoy. Thanks so much. All right, good morning, FlossTube. This is Jean Workman with Monticello Stitches, and I am in Witney, Oxfordshire.
Yep.
With Becky Scott at Witney Antiques, a wonderful, wonderful mecca for antique needlework. So, Becky, your shop is wonderful.
Thank you.
Tell me, how long have you been here?
So, my parents started the business about 60 years ago.
No kidding.
And when I came into the business 40 years ago, my passion was the needlework. So that was the road because originally they were furniture and clock dealers.
Oh, okay.
So for 40 years, we've been selling and exhibiting needlework. And when my parents passed away and I took over the business, I pushed, that's the direction I wanted to go in.
Well, who knew that would be the direction so many cross-stitchers especially have gone in, really?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's a huge part of the needlework community.
It is. Now, the things that I do just hearken to historic symbols. I have not ever had an antique needlework of my own to exactly copy. I just cut and paste, kind of.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but I get so excited about it. And I was told about it by Barbara Hudson from Queenstown Sampler. She said, you must come here. I'm so glad I took her advice. Well, would you like to just walk around with me and show me your wonderful things? And I'll just keep filming if that's okay.
That's fine. So in this room, it's a real mixture, but this wall here is predominantly 17th century band samplers.
Wow, how wonderful.
And then we have objects worked in the 17th century as well. So we have 3 caskets.
And I have seen those, and they're kind of new to me. I see people doing, oh my gosh, I hope they had magnification back then, because that is exquisite and so tiny.
Yes.
Wow.
So my business is pretty much split between samplers and what we call the early modern period of embroidered needlework, which is predominantly 17th century.
Would that encompass crewel in that time or not exactly?
Yes, although I very much concentrate on embroidered domestic needlework, and I don't. I mean, occasionally I will have pieces of crewel work, but generally I stick to the smaller scale pieces.
Pack it in a suitcase so you can go home.
Yeah. So that's really my business, and we try very hard, first of all, to present the things in the best possible way that we can. So everything is conservation mounted and it's all framed behind museum protective glass. And we spend a lot of time, because I do a lot of writing, so we produce books on the subject.
Oh, nice. Is it hard to research much about the stitcher?
It depends. Depends what it is. But actually, recently, the last few years, we've been sort of concentrating on the early modern period, the 17th century things. And there is a lot that we're learning about that period. And now we're starting to be able to attribute pieces that would otherwise have been sort of fairly anonymous, actually to particular schools and so on.
Were those pieces, the more modern ones, were they instructions for girls the way some are, or were they just home decorations? Or
No. They were very much the product of the schoolroom.
Okay.
And very much part of the education, and actually even objects like the caskets that I have here, they were worked in the schoolroom as well.
My goodness.
They were part of. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Let me.
Sure, do what you need.
Sorry.
So that is 15, what'd you say?
That's about 1580 in dates.
Certainly, yes. Are you okay with a sweeping shot like this on my...
These are stitchery pieces too, not tapestries.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all embroidered.
Oh, these are so
amazing.
wonderful.
So, in the education of these girls, did they have like
Books of designs you choose from, or was everybody doing the same thing?
No, they would have books. I mean, they would have, a teacher would have her design sources, and she would, you'll see objects worked or samplers worked under the same tuition, which will show variations. So clearly the girls in the 17th century, they would have had an element of choice as to what they, where they positioned a particular band and so on. But you very quickly see that there are certain very striking similarities between work. I mean, I think what's important to realise is that the teacher's influence was absolutely paramount. And certainly when you move on, we've just produced a book on Bristol samplers. In the case of Bristol, actually the girls had very little choice. I mean, they had the choice to put their own names on samplers, but it was very regimented as to what they did, and we did a sort of an analysis, if you like, of known Bristol samplers and putting them into which house, because there were 5 houses within Bristol Orphanage, 4 of which were girls or mixed. Only one was boys only. And the samplers worked there. You very quickly understand that these girls had very little choice. I mean, even down to the placement of a cow in the bottom left corner, and there are differences between the samplers that were produced there, but they are very much at the whim of the particular teacher who was teaching.
And just as I look on social media or just really on the web, I've seen a lot of sisters who have the same design but a little different. So maybe Daddy had to buy those patterns for them to do. What do you think?
I think, well, predominantly. It's not exclusive. There are no absolutes, but generally speaking, most girls were working their samplers within a formal educational establishment. Okay. They weren't, generally speaking. That's not to say there aren't exceptions. There absolutely are. But generally speaking, they're being worked in a schoolroom as opposed to being worked within the home.
Now, do you ever get any Welsh samplers much?
Yes, absolutely.
I like to look at those. The colours are bright. I tend to do bright.
Yeah, Mama Loves You GB. She produces a lot of. She's particularly interested in Welsh samplers, and she has a lot of Welsh samplers, and she reproduces them and so on. But yes, quite a lot of them are bright. They're slightly more. It's not exclusively the case, but a lot of Welsh samplers that you see are sort of a little bit looser. They're a little bit.
And I love looking at the back of the pictures because you can see how the colours might change over
Absolutely,
time.
Yeah. Well, looking at the backs of samplers is massively important. It's really critical. It also, by looking at the backs, because sometimes you can't recognise the stitch when you look at the front.
I don't know that you could on the back of mine, even with a cross stitch.
But certainly, yes. And it's also important in understanding colour, because I think we're so used to seeing things which are quite faded or somewhat faded. We forget what a colourful world it was. And so when you see things, I mean, I can show you an example. Now, this is a 17th century band sampler. It is a particularly important sampler, and it is a very, 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 very fine sampler. Now, it's also in a remarkable state of preservation.
Oh my, how gorgeous.
Now, this sampler this is worked under Quaker instruction.
Wow. Wow. So gorgeous.
This
and so
sampler, it's not named, it's not dated, but it would date from probably the late 1680s through the 1690s.
amazing.
It is almost certainly worked at a school associated with the Devonshire House monthly meeting.
And would this be attributed to one stitcher?
Yes. So this is the work of one girl in her school. But you can see on the back that actually the colours on the front are...
Especially that apricot kind of colour.
Yeah. They have, you know, the colour that you see on the front is absolutely the colour that was worked originally. There's been very, very little fading. And that's probably because the sampler was kept rolled up. And band samplers were never framed originally. They weren't intended to be framed.
And what about, like, I know some colors, I'm thinking of what? Madder, M-A-D-D-E-R.
Yeah.
They're not as color fast over time as some. They change to brown. Have you ever seen a lot of that?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, colours change over time, depending on the light that they're kept in. Band samplers are it's not always the case, absolutely, but in this particular case, this sampler has kept its original colour, and that's fairly remarkable.
Now, are you a stitcher as well? Do you stitch? And you probably haven't.
I have been made to start stitching.
Against your will.
Everybody always says to me, oh, you must stitch, you must, and it's like, that was not my path into this field.
Well, every wonderful piece of art needs an audience. You can just be that wonderful audience.
So, also partly because I am surrounded by such fantastic things, I would be, nobody would really.
You'd have to just go for the badger or the Bigfoot, right? Just totally different genre. Well, I appreciate this so much. It's been delightful.
You're welcome.
And I will let you see everything I do before I figure out how I'm going to do it.